Assalamu alaikum. It's a huge honor to be with all of you in this room full of energy, full of moral energy, full of love, compassion, mercy, all of the divine qualities filling this room. And filling this room, this moment, but filling the lives and meeting the people who need all of us every day, in these places of great suffering. Shaquille asked me to speak a little bit about cost and a little bit about policy. And the first thing I want to say is that the Justice Not Jails project is a new project. It's 2 years old, it's faith-based, it's interfaith, and it takes its point of departure from the values we all hold in common across our religious traditions. Love, compassion, and justice. That's why we call it Justice Not Jails. I don't think I have to say that the most significant injustice that some people say hides in plain sight in our culture is the disgraceful system, U.S. system of mass incarceration. Yes. With fewer than 5% of the world's people, we incarcerate 25% of the world's people. If you chart this, it's every other country, including countries we like to condemn as repressive, and then there's the U.S. So that is a scandal and a disgrace, and it's a shame. It's a blemish on all of us. Many of you are rooted in chaplaincies and in what broadly is called prison ministry. I want to say that although the Justice Not Jails project is aimed at structural change, is aimed at shrinking this system down to something like a normal size. You know, in a normal sized country, we wouldn't incarcerate 2.3 million people. We might at most incarcerate 400,000. And what I want to leave with you today is that this is new. I'm old, but this is new. The point of departure from which we measure the plunge into the abyss of mass incarceration is about 1980. Everybody pretty much accepts 1980 as the turning point. And I'll say just briefly how that came about. There was a panic, you might call it a panic attack in those years. And there was a panic attack, the way I like to put it is that white people, white Christians for the most part, said, wait a minute, we have not managed to keep absolute control of the system in the way that we had hoped to, and there's a way to address this, and the way to address it is to do what we've always done, but do it in a different way. That is to say, reduce human beings to things, reduce human beings to less than, find ways in which to ensnare those human beings and incarcerate them in mass and disable them. You all know Professor Michelle Alexander, a law professor in Ohio, who wrote a book called The New Jim Crow, and she took that title very directly from something that many people in our country would like to forget, which is 350 years of systematic racial oppression and systematic degradation of human beings made in God's image. That book was breathtaking. She tells the story of how her husband said, don't write that book. It's too controversial. And she went ahead and she wrote that book. So many of you, I can tell from the nodding, you're familiar with this. On the cost question, when you expand the prison system, the number of people incarcerated by 350% over a period of 35 years and spend $1 trillion doing it, you've changed some things around in terms of your priorities. You've not only destroyed the lives of millions of people and the lives of their families and cut off their opportunities for proper reintegration, which is not to be brought out of captivity and left in a different kind of captivity, but it's to be brought fully back into the embrace of the community. We've not done that. Right? We've not done that. We've turned the other way. So the cost of that is enormous obviously in respect to the lives that are shattered, but it's also enormous in respect to the entire economy, in that your disablement of that many people in that many communities is like you could call it an economic ball and chain around the whole United States economy, which no one ever takes into account. Just in, and I don't want to take too much time or take you into the zone of statistics too much, but 60% of the people we incarcerate are in their prime working years, the ages of 18 to 39, and we exclude those people from the what's called the employment ratio, the number of people in the population who are employed. So in fact, if you take that into account, the unemployment rate in the United States is far greater by at least 1.5, some people say 2%, than is commonly reported. And overwhelmingly, these are people of color and communities of color that bear the burden of this. Because a prison record or a felony conviction lowers a person's job prospects by roughly half, and 60% of the people who come out are never employed again, 60%. This you can imagine is costing the United States economy probably in lost output about $65 billion per year. In California, this is oversimplifying it, but you might paint the whole picture from 1980 to say that in the period of 1980 to 2005, California built just one new public university, but built 22 state prisons. Right? So these functions changed places within the state general fund, where public higher ed used to be the highest investment in California. The highest investment became putting people behind bars and destroying lives. So that has to change. That has to change because we have no alternative if we want to reclaim our, how shall I put it, our always tenuous claim to be God's people, our always conditional claim to be servants of the Most High, because that's the third cost. So there's the cost to the families and communities that are destroyed and the people. There's the economic cost, but to me, the cost of this system is primarily spiritual and moral. We have lost our way. We have lost our way. We have lost our way. Justice Not Jails has produced a 7-part adult study curriculum. These are 90-minute sessions, and we did this initially for the Christians. We thought we'll start with the faith tradition we know best, most of us, in my world. So we did one for Christians, and we field tested it with faith communities to see if the language is right. Now we invite your help, because the next one we want to do is going to be Islamic, and it's not going to be a copycat of the Christian one. One of you or some of you will do this in the way you know how to do it, but that's desperately needed because we need that depth. We have the depth in the room here, but we need that depth in all of the mosques, in all of the prayer circles, that depth of understanding on how deep all of this is. Imam Hafiz was with us on Thursday at another inspiring gathering where all of the groups that work on criminal justice reform in LA County were gathered together to talk about what comes next in the wake of Prop 47. I just want to spend 1 minute on that and then I'll end. Prop 47 was monumental and game-changing potentially in California and the country, but only on one condition. And just for background, Prop 47 took what had been 6 felony offenses that in many other states were never felonized, but in California were felonies, changed them into misdemeanors, not just for the future, but retroactively. Retroactively. So that over 10,000 people could be coming out of state prison. They have to have a hearing before a judge, but over 10,000, and guess what? In LA County, which I'm more familiar with than Orange County, up to 4,000 out of the LA County jails. Think about that. But this won't happen like that. This will happen when people get proper counsel, proper support. They're going to need legal assistance, obviously. We're going to need far more resources with the city attorneys. We heard that the other day. We're going to need to do a lot. 80% of the work to make 47 real is still ahead of us. But I rejoice. I should have been retired as well a couple of years ago. I left my old job. I do this work now as a volunteer. I can't imagine doing anything else. It gives me joy. It gives me joy to be with you. It gives me joy to be in the struggle with you. One of the things, and I want to leave you with this, and I follow what the other speakers have said about the need for community resources. There is an enormous, and Mr. Development Director, are you with me? There's an enormous amount of money soon to become available to community-based and faith-based reentry support providers that has never been there before. It's coming through different channels. Some of it's coming directly through 47. There's also a special fund of $90 million that was established just this year of money flowing out to through what's called the Board of State and Community Corrections to counties to disperse. But most importantly, think about this. And again, I speak of LA County. So LA County has received under what's called realignment for the last 3 years. You know, the courts ordered the state to lower the prison population, so they shipped all those people to the counties, right? And the problem with realignment is it shouldn't be a change of address. It should be liberation for low-level offenders. The counties collected all this money, and it's not coming to you. It's not coming to the providers. It's getting stuck in the sheriff's department. It's getting stuck, and it's a huge amount. It's over $1 billion in the course of 3 years. They're going to continue to get that money even though the numbers are going to go down. So the question becomes, and I leave this thought with you, what becomes of that? And why isn't that going to go to the community? This is why we need prayer. We need compassionate connection with people who are in jail. We need direct embrace when people come out. We also need you to be with us on these policy changes. Thank you, and again, it's a privilege to be with you. I'm delighted.